The lights inside the Echo Park Speedway press box are always a little too bright. They wash everything out: the faces of the journalists, the coffee cups going cold, the scoring monitors that never lie. It is Sunday, February 23rd, 2026, and somewhere down on the 154-mile Georgia Oval, a Red Bull Chevrolet Camaro ZL1 is doing something that, statistically speaking, should not be happening. The number 97 has just gone into the grass times again, times for the second time in 40 laps. 2 trips off the racing surface, 2 slides through the infield at Atlanta. And yet, when the final lap counter rolls down and the checkered flag falls, Shane van Gisbergen, 36 years old, born in Auckland, New Zealand, a man who spent 2 decades learning to race without a single left-hand only turn, is standing 5th in the championship standings. He is 5th in the points. In February, after 2 oval races, Van Gisbergen overcame 2 separate slides through the front stretch grass at Echo Park Speedway, one of his own doing, one of someone else's, to charge back through the field in his No. 97 Trackhouse Racing Chevrolet and Notch, his first top 10 finish of 2026, and his first single-digit result on an oval. When he climbs out of that car in the garage, still wearing his Red Bull race suit, still breathing hard, he says, "I was 4th going into the last corner and let the 2 guys inside me. But it's a pretty good day. A pretty good day." The understatement of the 2026 NASCAR season. Across the garage, in the teams that actually grew up running ovals, the Joe Gibbs Racing Haulers, the Hendrick Motorsports Transporters, the Penske tent where championships are built brick by brick over decades, people are beginning to look over their shoulders because something is shifting, something quiet, something that a handful of insiders saw coming and still cannot quite believe is arriving this fast. Fast forward 1 week, Phoenix Raceway, Arizona. March 9th, 2026. The desert sky turns that particular shade of burnt orange as the sun drops behind the grandstands. Van Gisbergen makes a remarkable comeback drive at Phoenix, recovering from 2 spins and a brake pedal that is falling off, literally coming loose underneath his foot at speed to claim 11th place. He is in line for a shock top 10 until running out of brakes in the closing laps. The garage buzzes. Nobody saw the recovery coming, not even the people watching from the press box. Jeff Gluck, veteran NASCAR journalist wearing his usual cap and press credentials lanyard, is sitting in the Phoenix press box when it happens. He is watching the scoring pylon the way he always does. One eye on the race, one eye on the numbers. On the latest episode of Times the Teardown Times podcast, Gluck and Jordan Bianchi discuss the moment. "I think the top of that list has to be Shane van Gisbergen," Gluck says, talking about the pleasant surprises of the early season. When the spin happens at Phoenix, Gluck assumes the narrative writes itself that the critics will flood social media, that the "he can't drive ovals" crowd will be activated and loud. But instead, Van Gisbergen rallies. He comes back to finish 11th somehow. "I have no idea how that happened. I literally have no idea how that happened," Gluck admits. "One of those last restarts, I'm looking up and it's like, what?" He guesses 2 tires on a restart, track position, something, anything. The scoreboard just keeps showing the number 97 further forward than logic allows. Jordan Bianchi adds a detail that stops the conversation cold. He says that when you talk to other drivers in the garage, they are in awe of what Van Gisbergen is doing. Not annoyed, not dismissive. In awe. These are men and women who grew up going to racetracks before they could drive themselves to school. They understand, better than anyone, how long it takes to decode an oval. And the Kiwi in the number 97 is moving through that education at a pace that does not make sense on paper. Over on X, formerly Twitter, the fan reaction tells its own story. By the time Phoenix wraps up, the trending conversation around SVG looks something like this. At NASCAR, Bobcat fan, 5 races in, SVG 5th in points. I need someone to explain this to me slowly. At Ovalhead Nation, 2 spins at Atlanta, comes back P6, brake pedal falling off at Phoenix, still P11. This man is not normal. At the 9-7 garage, stop telling me he's just a road course guy. He is 5th in the points. Now consider what this means for the established order. In a recent Times, Dale Jr., Download Times exclusive, 2-time NASCAR Cup Series champion Brad Keselowski admits his early perception of Van Gisbergen's role inside Trackhouse was completely wrong. It almost felt like SVG was a prop for the company, Keselowski says frankly, that brought in more sponsorship revenue, more talent to help make Daniel and Ross run better. That was the way I kind of saw it, but then he pauses. I got to tell you now that 2026 has come along and he's had such a great start of the year, I feel like I was wrong. Keselowski does not say things like that lightly. Meanwhile, the man who was supposed to be Trackhouse's unquestioned oval ace, Ross Chastain, the Florida watermelon farmer who punched the wall at Martinsville and became a folk hero, who has been with this team since its first breath, is sitting 23rd in the championship. 23rd. SVG is ahead of him by 18 spots. On March 10th, 2026, Chastain is photographed at Lainey Wilson's Bell Bottoms Up restaurant and bar in Nashville, dressed casually, smiling for the cameras, doing what drivers do when the points aren't going the way they planned. The contrast with the garage energy around the number 97 hauler is impossible to ignore. And then there is Tyler Reddick. The man who managed to hold SVG off at COTA on March 1st, one of the few drivers capable of beating Van Gisbergen on a road course right now, is blunt about what the rest of the field is dealing with. It drives me nuts going to a road course and getting just dusted by Shane. Reddick says, "We've been working really hard to work around our road course program." If Reddick, with 3 road course wins on his resume, is this frustrated on twisty tracks, imagine what Las Vegas Motor Speedway looks like to the rest of the field if SVG figures out 1-5-mile intermediate ovals. That is the next chapter. That is the real test. Las Vegas, Darlington, the relentless grind of the 2026 oval calendar, those are the tracks where the skeptics are still waiting to be proven right. Van Gisbergen himself addresses the oval progress ahead of COTA. These oval races, we are making big gains. We weren't really in position very often to score stage points last year. Now we are able to do that in Daytona and Atlanta, and it's very promising. He says road courses are like a holiday for his team. The ovals are where he is doing the real work. That is the most dangerous sentence in NASCAR right now. A man who treats road courses as a vacation and is timed still 5th in points, Times is now making gains on the discipline that comprises 85% of the schedule. He is not yet a title contender in 2026. But if he is consistently competitive on ovals, it is not outlandish to say he could become one before he decides to retire. The garage can feel it. The press box can feel it. The championship standings do not lie. And somewhere in the desert night, the 97 Chevrolet rolls back into its hauler and the team gets to work for next week. The story is not over. It is just beginning to get terrifying.